Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. Going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days for today's second video, which is going to take us to around the 19th of March. And we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensembles, which will take us to a couple of weeks away. So that takes us further out beyond the 19th of March. We'll also have a look at CFS-V2 for the next month. That takes us into the beginning of April. We'll start off having a look at the central England temperature. So before I get on with that, just to say that weekend forecast has been released. As always on a Saturday, we've got your detailed weekend look ahead, and it looks as though it's going to be a very interesting week's weather indeed. Very lively week's weather. Low pressure going to be dominating. We're going to have showers or longer spells of rain, severe gales, sleet, snow, hail, thunder, lightning, you name it, it's happening this week. So have a look at weekend forecast and see what's going on. Talking of snow, we're going to be doing Snow Watch this evening because there is risk of some fairly significant snow, actually, would you believe, later tonight and into tomorrow morning through some parts of the country. Not everybody, by any means, but some places will probably get a covering of snow tomorrow morning. So more about that on Snow Watch. We do cover it in weekend forecast, but for a detailed look at that, we're going to be talking about it in Snow Watch this evening. Between now and then, this is your week ahead look at it, and we'd better get on with it. So we're going to start off having a look at the central England temperature. So this is how we're currently sitting with the CET from Hadley. We're currently standing at 7.5, 2.7 degrees above average for March CET, up to the 8th of March. So we're a week in and we've had a very mild start to March, to say the least, although it hasn't necessarily felt all that mild, I must admit. But the stats show that it's over 2 degrees above average, although this is coming down. A couple of days ago, this was over 3 degrees above average, over 8 degrees for the CET itself. So this is reducing. It's likely to reduce further actually in the next week. So by this time next week, we may shave off around another degree or so from this and be down somewhere in the low to mid-6s, I would have thought. So this is going to continue to reduce, and it looks like the warm start that we had to March is kind of like running out of steam, running out of puff a little bit, and looks like we're going to kind of like stall the rise in the CET over the next week or so. Anyway, it may start to lift off again in the second half of the month. It will depend whether high pressure builds back in, and if it does, whether that high pressure starts to draw up warmer air. But certainly for the next week or so, it does look as though this central temperature is stalling quite a bit. Right, these are the 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts from the Penn State University. We've got the ECMWF on the top and the GFS is on the bottom. These are the 500 millibar height anomalies for the next week to 10 days. This is going to take us to around the 9th of March. Blue is extrapolating to below average heights, which is low pressure. Yellow, orange and red extrapolating to above average heights, which is high pressure. One of the reasons we're going to be stalling that rise in the CET is because we've got a deep trough of below average heights centered over to the north of the country, and with a strong jet stream coming across the Atlantic into the UK, it looks very unsettled in the 7 to 10 day time frame. But not only is it unsettled, it's also quite cool, or even at times a little bit cold as well, because there is a northwest southeast alignment to that jet stream. So we are enveloping or entrenching quite cold air into this trough of below average height. So we expect it to be unsettled and chilly up to and even beyond the middle part of March with that scenario. The GFS is very similar. It's not quite as deep with that trough of below average heights, but it has it a little bit more to the east and northeast of us, with the above average heights again in the middle of the Atlantic. It means we do something like that with the flow and with the jet. So if anything, the GFS is a little bit less unsettled perhaps in the 7 to 10 day time frame, but it's also potentially a little bit colder because that trough is centered over to the east of us. It means we have a little bit more of a northerly sort of influence fronts coming down from the north. So the GFS is a bit cold. It's not quite as unsettled in the 7 to 10 day time frame, but it is a bit colder. But it's sort of they're both sort of very much in the same area, really, which is unsettled and chilly conditions continuing through to the middle part of March and potentially beyond. And at times it could be quite cold as well. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles. Looking at Darwin up in Lancashire today. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Darwin. By the way, this is another place in our list of suggested locations. We're running out of locations now, so if you would like to have your local town or city, can't go down to village level, I don't think, but if you would like to have your local town or city featured for this section of the videos, then do let me know. And we'll start getting the list going once again, because we're running out of places now. We've only got another couple of places left to do on our list. So do let us know if you'd like to see your local town or city featured in this section of the video. Anyway, coming back to the ensemble. So the red line is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Darwin. And you see for the next week or so, next week, 10 days, generally we're trending cooler or colder than average. There are milder sectors coming through, one just there, for example, another one there around Thursday or into Friday, likely to lift the temperature up a bit. So, a couple of milder days in there, but overall it looks quite cool, occasionally fairly cold, and with some wintry potential. Now, to the extended range, which is this period just here, taking us now into the final week of March. A lot of scatter. The trend is probably to lift the upper air temperatures up to some degree, but there is a lot of scatter in there. It's not overly convincing yet, but it's going to turn a great deal milder through the final sort of week to 10 days of March, I have to say. There are some really quite mild outliers, or they're not really outliers, they're quite well supported, but these are like the milder ensemble members, the milder clusters up here, but then we can't discount these ones down here either. So there's a lot of scatter. Looks like it's going to start turning less cool, I suppose, maybe a bit milder through the final week to 10 days of March, but it's not overly convincing when it's going to turn particularly mild. As far as the precipitation is concerned, really unsettled for the next week to 10 days. So look at all these precipitation spikes that we've got coming up to kind of like 17th, 18th of March. It looks like we're in for quite a deluge. And not only is that rain, there might also be some snow mixed in at times. Now, as we go into more extended range, again, we do see a drying trend. It doesn't look as unsettled. It doesn't look as wet as it is in this period. But again, it's not overly convincing that it's turning completely dry, I have to say. There are still quite a few precipitation spikes in there. So the trend looks like it is still towards milder and drier as we're going into the final week to 10 days of March. But, excuse me, not a completely convincing picture that we're going to really build in high pressure and turn things a lot warmer and a lot dry through that final week to 10 days of March. So I think we still just have to wait and see a little while longer for how things are going to develop through the final week to 10 days of the month. Still questions to answer there. Temperature anomalies from the 9th to the 17th of March, very close to average. Northern parts of the country again looking a bit colder than average. Southern parts of the country perhaps a little bit on the milder but average side. It's not a big deviation. It remains, as we've seen for several days now, very close to average, really colder than average across Scandinavia. Also remains very unsettled, so from the 9th through to the 17th of March, a precipitation anomaly through all parts of the UK and most of Europe as well, you have to say, away from the Med. Most places coming out with above average precipitation. So looks like the temperatures, again, they're relatively cool and it's very unsettled in the week ahead. This is how the GFS parallel run is looking, this is how the GFS operational run is looking for Tuesday, and really unsettled. Deep area of low pressure out to west of Scotland, bringing gale force winds and a battering of heavy rain across the country on Tuesday. That low pressure gets itself into the North Sea on Wednesday, turning wind into the north, so it'll remain pretty cold and unsettled with more gales through to the middle of the week. Then winds back into west and southwest on Thursday, starting to drag some milder air in from off the Atlantic. So we do get a milder interlude in the second half of the week, but by Friday a cold front is pushing southwards, reintroducing colder air from the north. As going to next weekend, that cold front, which does stall a bit across the south, could give a very wet spell of weather from Friday into Saturday across southern parts of the country, but eventually that cold front moves away and the wind turns into the north, and then that takes into a cold weekend next weekend with northerly winds bringing snow showers to northern and potentially eastern parts of the country as well. There could be some quite harsh overnight frost with that also. Moving up towards day 10, the high pressure beginning to topple in from off the Atlantic Ocean. That's how we look at day 10. So it's turning a bit milder again at day 10, which is Tuesday the 19th of March. Winds are beginning to bat more into the west-southwest again, drawing the air in from the middle of the Atlantic. Still looks quite unsettled for the north. For the south, it is rather drier. Moving into extended range with the GFS, where we keep high pressure to our south, low pressure is up to the north. So it is turning milder, and it is turning a bit drier for England and Wales, probably still quite unsettled though for Scotland and Northern Ireland. It's not until very late on that the high pressure finally starts to make its move, so by the time we get through to the end of the GFS run, which takes us now to Monday the 25th of March, by that point high pressure is properly starting to build in, and it would be turning quite a lot milder as well, with drawing wind up from the south now around this high pressure. So that's spring returning there as we get through to the final week of March. Now this is what we're expecting to happen for March. We have always been expecting high pressure to build back through the final week or so of the month, turning it much warmer and drier and bringing a return to spring. But until we see convincing signs within the GFS ensembles, I think we do have to stay fairly cautious about that. This is the GFS parallel run, and again, starting on Tuesday, it looks really unsettled, wet, windy, maybe even a bit stormy across the country. That low pressure slinking down into the North Sea on Wednesday, turning wind into the north, so remains very unsettled, quite cold and windy too. Bit milder for Thursday and for Friday, but then by the time we get through to Saturday, we're turning winds back into the north and the northwest again. So here we go, another northerly pushing down across the country next weekend. This is Sunday 17th of March, looking quite unsettled, snow showers probably in northern and eastern parts of the country. Then the parallel run builds its high pressure back in from the Atlantic as we get towards day 10. So we're beginning to draw the wind in from the middle of the Atlantic. Now it's turning less cold, maybe even milder. And for the south and southwest, fairly dry, but still a little bit unsettled in the north. In the more extended range with the parallel GFS run, again, same idea, but going more with high pressure. So the high pressure builds in very strongly with the parallel GFS run. That's how we look at the very end of the GFS parallel run, which is the 25th of March. The high pressure is right over top of the UK. Not sure that's overly mild. It might actually be quite chilly, particularly at night. It's not bringing up a particularly mild source of air, but it's certainly breaking us out of the unsettled weather, and that's significantly dry. In fact, it would be universally dry across the whole country as we get through to the final week of March. ECMWF, again, low pressure is battering the country on Tuesday with heavy rain and gale force winds. Keep it very unsettled and quite cold up to the middle of next week. Second half of next week turns a bit milder in the south, not especially so in the north, and by the time you get through to next weekend, just looks very unsettled. Not quite so much of a northerly with the ECM today, so it's bringing down quite chilly air from the northwest, but it's not a direct sort of northerly from the North Pole like we're seeing with the GFS output at the moment. That's how we finish up with the ECM at day 10. No sign of high pressure. In fact, it looks like it's turning increasingly unsettled again. It's staying very unsettled, let's put it that way, with low pressure up to the north and more showers or longer spells of rain. Let's see how that stacks up within the ECM ensemble. So this is how the postage stamps are looking today at day 10, 240 hours, which is the 19th of March, of course. So we've got 20 members of the ECM ensembles at day 10 with high pressure out to the west of the country and low pressure over to the east of us, and this is meaning that we are turning things a bit drier. The high pressure is bridging out to our west, but it's quite cool, or maybe even fairly coldish really, with wind coming in that sort of direction. There's another 17, including the ECM control run, that have high pressure sort of to our south-southwest, low pressure up to the north-northwest. These are a milder option. These are bringing in winds from a westerly direction. And for much of the country, it's turning drier as well, but still a bit unsettled up in the north. And then we've got 14 members of the ECM ensembles, including the operational run. That's the run we was just looking at, that still look very unsettled at day 10, with low pressure over and a little bit to the east of the country. So they're very unsettled and quite cool. So what this tells us is that the scenario that we see there at day 10, Tuesday 19th of March, from today's operational ECM, is not well supported by its ensemble. So it's not an outlier. There are 14 members of the ECM ensembles that do look quite unsettled still at day 10. But it's not particularly well supported by the ECM ensembles, because if you put these 20 with these 17, the trend by day 10 looks as if it's starting to build high pressure back in from the west-southwest. So again, we have to say that the ECM operational run finishes up fairly unsupported by its ensemble. Now, these are all the options that are on the table within the ECM ensembles in 2 weeks' time. There's a lot of them. So this is 360 hours away, 24th of March. We've got 14 members of the ECM ensembles in 2 weeks' time that are unsettled with low pressure to our west-northwest, and they're continuing to bring in Atlantic winds. Then there's another 12 that have low pressure. These are unsettled again, have low pressure through the country and to our south. So again, those are quite unsettled, and they're fairly chilly as well, I would have thought. The jet stream is probably going to the south of the UK with those who are on the cold side of the jet. There's 11 that have high pressure just to the west-southwest of the country. So these ones have a ridge, kind of like to west-southwest. Obviously, they're a lot drier, and they're milder as well. The jet stream is being pushed up to the north with those 11. There's 7 that look like this. They have a weak ridge out to the west of the country, with low pressure to the east and to the west. So they're a little bit indecisive, I think, inconclusive. They're trying to turn things drier, but they might still be rather unsettled. And then there is 7, a minority option that has high pressure up over Scandinavia. So these ones are bringing in easterly winds as we get through to 2 weeks away. Obviously a lot drier, but they could be quite chilly, maybe even cold with those easterly winds, depending on the origins of the air. So it's a real mix by 2 weeks' time. And again, this just highlights what I was saying about it being rather inconclusive about whether we are actually going to go into a spell of anticyclonic weather. Although the GFS operational and parallel runs do want to go in that direction between days 10 and 14, it is rather inconclusive, I have to say, whether that is the direction we're going in. Until we see greater evidence from both the ECMWF ensemble and also from the GFS ensembles, until we see more evidence of this high pressure building in for the final week to 10 days of March, I think we have to stay cautious about it. We might keep things unsettled even going into the final week to 10 days of March. That's not what I'm expecting, but it is a possibility. Finally, CFS V2, so these are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period takes us from the 9th to the 15th of March. Obviously, the coming week is going to be very unsettled with below average heights over and to the east and north of the country. We're on the cold side of the jet stream, so it's going to be cool, it's going to be unsettled, it'll be quite stormy at times, and there is a risk of some snow. More on that in Snow Watch this evening. Week 2 from the 16th to the 22nd of March with below average heights through Scandinavia and central parts of Europe, above average heights out to our west. So beginning to settle down, high pressure building out to west, probably still quite chilly. but it is turning a bit drier as that trough is moving away into northern and eastern parts of Europe. Week 3, big change. So we have high pressure then to the north of the UK and going over to Scandinavia. So that's bringing in easterly winds. That's the kind of thing we was waiting for throughout most of the winter. That's bringing in an easterly wind with high pressure over Scandinavia in week 3 from the 23rd to the 29th of March. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 30th of March to the 5th of April, still with above average heights to our east, but further south, and so this will be the arrival of spring then. We will start to bring up much milder air from the south as we go into the first week of April. Temperature anomalies in the week ahead, very close to or maybe slightly cooler than average, not a big deviation. Week 2 temperature anomalies, again looking rather cool, if anything, particularly through central parts of Europe, where we do actually have really quite a cold week from the 16th to the 22nd of March. Week 3 temperature anomalies, so this one we've got that easterly wind, and actually even with that, the temperature anomaly is going a little bit towards the milder than average side then. And then week 4, this is the one that turns a lot milder though. This is the 30th of March to the 5th of April. Temperature anomalies going above average. Spring returns as we go through to the end of the month. And precipitation wise, week 1, 9th to 15th of March, very unsettled week ahead. Lots of wet weather coming up. Week 2 looks drier, but only to average precipitation, so there will still be some unsettled weather in week 2. Week 3, which is the 23rd, 29th of March, that one again is close to average or perhaps a bit on the drier than average side. And then week 4, basically we've lost a signal by week 4, the 30th of March to 5th of April, but I would suspect that would be relatively dry with that area of high pressure to our east. So it's all rather inconclusive still for the final week to 10 days of the month. In the next sort of coming week to 10 days, it does look as though it's going to be really quite unsettled, particularly next week. Showers, long spells of rain, quite cold too, and there is a risk of some snow. We'll have more about that on Snow Watch this evening. In the more extended range, we've still got the idea there that we're going to build up high pressure for the final week to 10 days of March and go back to a more spring-like pattern. But it's inconclusive. It's not guaranteed by any means, and we might keep this unsettled weather extending out a little bit longer. We should wait and see about that. Right, don't forget to check out Weekend Forecast, and we've got Snow Watch coming up this evening. Tomorrow, we're going to begin with the first batch of summer analogue, so that'll be quite an interesting watch. We're also going to have Gaz over his sunny roundup, of course, tomorrow as well. And as well tomorrow, we're going to verify the winter 2018-19 forecast. So you'll be able to see how the forecast did, what happened through the winter, and the reasons, or some of the reasons anyway, why I think we had such a very mild and a dry winter. So that will be the third video up tomorrow afternoon. That's all for now though, and thanks for watching.